Okay, booktube, it is time to look at Shakespeare. It's always time to look at Shakespeare. We are going to look at Antony and Cleopatra, a play that doesn't get staged enough. Um, and I don't know why we all learned Julius Caesar in high school in the States. I don't know how it is in Britain, but or the Commonwealth, but I wish it were Antony and Cleopatra we looked at, because what an amazing character Cleopatra is. Antony too, and we're going to get into that and their doublings and a few other fun themes today. Looking at this through a lens of one of the great Shakespearean critics, whose name is Harold Bloom, who wrote about Shakespeare and Invention of a Human. And he's going to help be a guide with me today. So I'm borrowing a few of his things. So let's look at the original power couple. Before there was Brangelina, Antony and Cleopatra. So, sources. So, question one. Is Shakespeare the god of IPs? Does this guy know how to elevate his source materials or what? It's well known he steals his ideas. In this case, according to the perspectivism in which Bloom views this work, he sees her as Isis, him as Hercules. He cites his sources for this play as Plutarch, for example. We know that Julius wrote De Bello Gallico, in which he talks about General Antony, but it doesn't seem that that was something that maybe Shakespeare was aware of. Anyway, so those are the sources, and the moment is kind of interesting too. So, what do we think about the fact that these great tragedies, Lear, Othello, Macbeth, and Antony and Cleopatra, okay, all four of them come from 1601 to 1605. Right after, by the way, this is also interesting. What does it mean that they come after the problem comedies, right? This is Troilus and Cressida, Measure for Measure, All's Well, that ends well, a lot of doublings there. It's interesting too. What do we make of that? So I'm going to start with Antony because I'm obsessed with Cleopatra. So we're going to deal with Antony rather shortly. Sorry, Antony, you deserve more. We see some of the doubling with Antony in a couple ways. He's looked at as being astride the sea and the land. He, of course, is sandwiched between Julius Caesar, right, with whom Cleopatra had Caesarion, their child. Of course, Julius is defunct at this point. And then Octavius, who's going to be Augustus Caesar, right, is going to come in at the end and sort this all out. So there's like and Antony is very much seen as a jealous figure. He even accuses her of being scraps of Pompey, which he knows she wasn't with Pompey. At one point, he sees the messenger Octavius sends making peace overtures, sort of holding the hand, kissing the hand of Cleopatra, and he has the man flogged and sent back to Octavius. Obviously, that doesn't go well. So yeah, he seems to be pretty jealous. Octavius says of him, Octavius, I think, is shown to be quite eloquent in this, certainly in this moment, but in this play. Bloom, there we disagree. Bloom thinks he's just a bureaucrat, but Bloom can never forgive him for killing Cicero, right? The model of eloquence. But listen to this. I think it's pretty eloquent. What do you think? The breaking of so great a thing, he's talking about the death of Antony, should make a greater crack. The round world should have shook lions into civil streets and citizens to their dens. The death of Antony is not a single doom. In the name lay a moitié of the earth, of the world. Half the world is in Antony. Or With Mecenas, can we say that maybe this mirroring is just narcissism? Mecenas says, when such a spacious mirror is set before him, he needs must see himself. He is a god and knows what is most right. Mine honor was not yielded, but conquered merely, says Cleopatra to Octavius. Now, here she is talking about Antony, but it echoes some things that she might have said of Julius. So there's this interesting moment, right? And also, nature wants stuff to vie strange forms with fancy. So what does Cleopatra have to say about Antony? We see them fighting, we see them loving, we see them all dying in all kinds of situations. We get to see them. She says at one point of him, he words me, girls, he words me. So at this point, she doesn't seem very impressed with him. She says to him, when you sued staying, then was the time for words. No going then. Eternity was in our lips and eyes. So when Antony wants to go, obviously she's not happy. We can see how skilled Cleopatra is going to be at manipulating and managing her double image or multiple image. So I think that deals with Antony. What else did I want to say about him? She's called this a demi-atlas at one point, along with the image of this colossus astride, the world like in Revelations. Okay, so that's Antony. Now let's get to Cleopatra. So yes, so we've already heard from her a little bit here. Let's just begin with sort of the context. She's in her 30s. He's in his 50s. What do we make of this age gap? I'm not going to get into the Ptolemaic or how exotic she is. One thinks of Solomon having Sheba, right, walk across the mirror. I'm not going to really get into too much of that. It is said that age cannot wither her, nor custom stale her infinite variety. Other women cloy the appetites they do feed, but she makes hungry where most she satisfies. So if there is a doubling or a multiplicity of Cleopatra, and if you grant that also there might have been this one of Antony, how are they different or similar? Cleo, I think, is in this difficult position, right? Because does she play Joan of Arc, right, the great victim, or does she play Portia, right? We've seen that Shakespeare can have his women plead eloquently. As I said to you before, she says that to Octavius, he is God and knows what is that my most right, mine honor was not yielded, but conquered merely. Now that's disingenuous because I think at the end we'll see. I hope you'll agree with me. I ask you though, did she really love him? I think maybe she did. What else can we say of her eloquence or of her? Why is it manipulation when women speak eloquently, but wooing when men do? Even her maid says of her at one point. She says to her, in time we hate that which we often fear weaning. So she's warning him to not overplay her hand with Antony here. This is probably the most damning thing that Cleopatra says, sort of on the side of duplicity. Duplicitous Cleopatra, she says, but it also shows her agency, right? How different she is from, right? Because she's going to have Antony told that she's killed. So she's died. So how different from Romeo and Juliet. So we have Cleopatra saying to Charmaine, the maid, if you find him sad, I did not send you. Don't say he came for me. If you find him sad, say I am dancing. If in mirth, report that I am sudden sick. All right, so What does she sound like when she's sincere? Was there ever such a man? She asked at one point of Antony. I think this is the best quote to sum up Antony. When she's facing death, she says at one point, "Will it eat me?" Of the snake. Just very human, just very almost childlike. Simple, just a human facing their doom. Here's where I think really this is the best citation I could find for what I would say. Well, what do you think of this? Do you buy this as true love? She says, "Sir, you and I have loved, but there is not it. That you know well. Something there is, I would. Oh, my oblivion is a very Antony, and I am all forgotten." Yes, there is the sort of all forgotten bit at the end, sort of emo, but that, oh, my Antony, my oblivion is Antony. Do you buy it, or do you think that this is? Sometimes we have a certain eloquence in love. I don't know if you've ever had this having an argument with a loved one, and you come off with these great Shakespearean lines. You think, where did all this eloquence come from? You're not sure if your feelings are guiding your words or your words are guiding your feelings. I think that might be part of what's going on there. And remember that what was said of Antony: his taints and honors waged equal with him. Okay, his taints and honors we waged equal with him. Do you agree with that? And could that be said of Cleopatra as well? Compare that, by the way, to friends, Romans, countrymen. Come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The good buried oft inside the bones. So the good and the bad. All right, so actum, or as I like to call it, actium 4. Here comes the clown, right? Bringing the figs, bringing the snake. I wish you joy of the worm, he says. Make a play, I think, on the snake as well as the worms of death. What do you think that Shakespeare is doing with that, or maybe both? Is this the apple, right, of the fall of man and the serpent? Is this the apple of the serpent, or is this pretty much just a sex joke? Because remember, he also says at one point, she compares the stroke of death to a lover's pinch. It hurts, but it is desired, right? So the other thing that's interesting in this final part is Enobarbus, who Antony wants him to kill him. And Enobarbus draws the sword and said, "Master, I'm so sorry." And then Enobarbus falls on the sword himself. Contrasting this, Enobarbus's duty of honor and yes, that was the other big theme I wanted to bring out. Fidelity, right? His dedication to his master, he falls on his own sword. Now, he is successful and dies. Antony lingers. Antony falls on his sword. He doesn't die. That seems to me really significant. So what do we make of that? Her passions are the finest part of pure love. We cannot call her winds and water, sighs and tears. There are greater storms and tempests than almanacs can report. This is my summation quote for Cleopatra, because everything is in there, I think. Winds and water, so, the passions, right, of nature that toss and turn us and toss and turn within us. There are greater storms and tempests than almanacs can report. I think almanacs gives the lie to this sentence, right? Storms, that's a big deal. But almanac, this is a little entry in a book. June 14th, Ides of March, whatever. So this is an interesting quote, I think, that in which Shakespeare really sort of shows his double approach to this couple. Right, and so ending here we have, let Rome and Tiber melt, and the wide arch of the ranged empire fall. Here is my space. Kingdoms are clay. our dungy earth alike feeds beast as man. The noblest of life is to do thus. When such a mutual pair and such a twain can do it, in which I bind, on pain of punishment, the world to weet, we stand up peerless. So, as my last question to you for Antony and Cleopatra, I ask you, are they peerless? Are they the ultimate power couple? Thank you, and let me know your thoughts. I really want to hear it so we can continue this discussion.